said he was qualified, so he whooped his ass, while he was in there. Now, the other stuff that happened, it went down the way it did, man.
I would like to wish you all the Brits to go fuck yourself.
Today, it's time to feel the heat. It's SummerSlam 1989. What a strange time this was. Kind of forget that a lot of big people that featured in the NWA jumped ship at this time and landed in the WWF. I mean, the first two matches feature integral parts of the NWA over the last few years. You've got two members of the Horsemen in Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. You've got a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion in Dusty Rhodes in the next match. And on commentary, you've got pretty much the voice of WCW, NWA, and Tony Schiavone. Remember when he worked for the WWF? What a strange time that was, and it was quite strange to see him there working for the WWF. It just didn't feel right. It's kind of like an alternate universe. But I've got to admit, I did enjoy this show. This was one of the shows that has a nice nostalgic feel for me. One of my first VHS tapes I ever owned was SummerSlam 1989. And I watched that relentlessly as a kid, back to back sometimes. I know every match off the top of my head. And it was nice to go back. Haven't watched it in a few years. And it was nice to go back and watch that show and appreciate how good it actually was. So let's start off with the first match. I mean, someone tell me a better opening SummerSlam match, because it's going to be hard to top. This one was fantastic. My only problem was the titles weren't on the line. The Brainbusters, heading into this, had just won the Tag Team Championships off Demolition. And they were going up against the Hart Foundation. This is like a dream team, tag team match. Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, like I said, Horseman coming into the WWF. The Hart Foundation had been there for a while. Former tag team champions. It was kind of like a dream match back then. The titles went on the line. It didn't sit right with me. And it didn't make any sense, because Busters won anyway. Why not have the titles on the line in what was a fantastic opening tag team match? This is tag team wrestling at its best. I suggest you watch it. I loved it. Loved it. Great match. Great way to start the show. Next up, we got Dusty Rhodes. Polka dots and all. American Dream blaring out through the stereo system. What's not to love? And the Dusty Rhodes you've got in NWA to this is kind of a joke. You can see what they're doing to him here. They're ribbing the guy. Vince McMahon is loving it, laughing at him. But he took it all in his stride and he went out there and he made it work. You got to admit, he got it over. He got the polka dots over. Decent match with the Honky Tonk Man. Dusty had to win. Honky can work, I suppose. I didn't mind Honky Tonk Man. He was entertaining as a heel. He was a decent IC champion. This was an okay match. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. Perfect versus Red Rooster. You knew he was winning this one. Like, again, another guy that just did dirty, man, with a shit gimmick. Poor Terry Taylor. Never stood a chance. Mr. Perfect, though. Fantastic, wasn't he? He was brilliant. 3-minute short match, right way to do it, really. Perfect was getting over here. They were building him up, and yeah, it's a good way to do it, I suppose. I mean, this didn't really feel like a big SummerSlam sort of match. This was just a quick job match, a squash match, just to fill the show out. There were a couple of six-man tag team matches on this show. And I enjoyed all of them. I thought they were good. The first one, Rick Martel and the Fabulous Rougeaus, got the Canada connection, French-Canadian connection right there, going up against Tito Santana, who was feuding with the model Rick Martel after the split of Strikeforce. Made sense. And he was partnered with the Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels, a young HBK. So a good six-man tag. Fast-paced, action-packed, what was not to love? You want to watch good six-man tag matches? Watch this one. We get a lot of them today and they make no sense. This was really good. Everyone did their job well and I felt the right team won. Martel needed to get some more heat, needed to get over more. And this was a good way to do it. Getting that cheap win. The IC title was on the line. And for me, the Intercontinental Championship was a big deal back then. And we know that. I've already mentioned that. But at SummerSlam, it felt like it owned SummerSlam. The Intercontinental Championship was the show for SummerSlam. Was the title for SummerSlam, should I say. If that makes sense. Like, every year the title was on the line at SummerSlam in the first few years. And it changed hands. You rarely saw the WWF title defended. First year it wasn't defended. Ultimate Warrior won it against Honky Tonk Man. What a match that was. Remember that one. This year we've got Ultimate Warrior again against Rick Rude. And if you thought the match at WrestleMania was good, this one was equally just as good, maybe even better. Warrior wins the title back. Roddy Piper gets involved. So Rick Rude's gotten out there and a reason to be angry afterwards, and the promo he cut afterwards was fire. This was just brilliant. And we carry on like the Intercontinental Championship meant big things at SummerSlam. It was always a title that was the big feature, in my opinion, that meant the most. That's what I'm saying, like how big the Intercontinental Championship was back then. It main evented at 92. Remember Perfect and Bret at 91? Come on. Just great matches at SummerSlam with the IC title that we're not getting today in these days. It's just not happening. I mean, Gunther's trying his best. Let's see where he goes with it. But this was a great match. Really enjoyed it. Right person won. Ultimate Warrior is the IC champion once again, thanks to Roddy Piper lifting his kilt up. I felt sorry for Rick Rude. He was a very good IC champion and he didn't have a very long reign. From WrestleMania to SummerSlam, back in those days, that's not a long reign, really, if you think about it. But he was a memorable champion, so he did a good job. Another six-man tag match, and this was a kind of different than the one we got earlier, which was fast-paced, action-packed. This was more heavy-hit guys, hard-hitting match. You had Demolition and Jim Duggan. This was King Duggan now, and I loved how they were all dressed up. I loved the face paint from Duggan. That was brilliant. Going up against the Twin Towers and André the Giant, and by this time, André was done. You could see his health had declined massively. This was not the André the Giant from many, many years before. It was sad to see, really. This is the André many of us remember. And he left a mark anyway on us. Like, he still had legs as well. He's still going. He still had time. He still won a tag team title after this with Haku, who carried him. But here, yeah, it was so obvious. Bossman and Akeem did the majority of the work. André got involved when and where he could. I liked how they finished the match, though. A little bit of cheating from the baby faces with Duggan using the 2x4. But it worked. It was a good match. Really enjoyable. I loved the characters back then of Duggan, Demolition. Akeem was a joke, and Bossman was brilliant as a heel. Really loved him, and you had Slick and Bobby the Brain on the outside. What's not to love there? Two great characters on the outside as well. Greg Valentine and Hercules Hernandez. The less said about that, the better. Lasted 3 minutes. What's the point in even talking about it? And you had rugged Ronnie Garvin doing the intros, and he just butchered it. He was just out there just ruining the whole thing for him. I mean, this was bad enough, and then they throw him in the mix. It got even worse. I enjoyed Ted DiBiase versus Jimmy Snuka. It was a good match, considering Jimmy Snuka. DiBiase won by count out. Snuka was at the end of his career here. Less said about Snuka, the better, okay? Let's just move on. It's time to talk about the main event. And this was a tag team match. Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake going up against Macho Man, Randy Savage and Zeus. Zeus, that's right. If you're not sure who Zeus is, if you don't know who Zeus is, you might know him better as Debo. That's right, Debo. Wrestled at a time, and the less said the better, I suppose. This wasn't a very good match, but the story told was fantastic, and I think we need to speak more about, rather than the wrestlers in the match, is someone who was on the outside. Miss Elizabeth doesn't get her flowers often enough. She has been an integral part to this story of Macho Man and Hogan. Even before that, she was an integral part for Macho Man. A big part of his story. Look back at the WrestleManias 2, 3, 4. Big part she played in all of them. 5 big parts she played. SummerSlam here, look at how she plays it. She was so over. More over than any other woman we've got today in the wrestling business. And she didn't have to take one single bump to do it. What does that tell you? It's a shame she's not in the Hall of Fame. It's a crime she's not in the Hall of Fame. She meant so much to that story. She was such an integral part, and she's still got more to come. There is still more to come after SummerSlam. Look at what happens at WrestleMania 7, for an instance. She steals the show. We've still got the wedding to come at SummerSlam 91. There's still a lot more from her to come, and she doesn't get her flowers often enough, and she's not talked about often enough as being so good. I mean, where have all the valets gone? Where is someone like her today? We don't get any of that. Like, all the women have got to get in the ring and wrestle. I think that's how they're going to get over. But look at what she did. Don't discredit it. Just because she was a valet, she was Macho Man's woman, bit on the side. No. She was an integral part to Macho Man. Without her, this thing wouldn't have worked as well. Without a doubt. Doesn't get her flowers often enough. Doesn't get the credit she deserves. And it's a crime, an absolute crime, that she is not in the Hall of Fame. Where's her petition? Do you know what I'm saying? Anyway, this was an enjoyable show. Nostalgia for me was to the top. Loved it all the way, every match. And I suggest going and watching it, because it was enjoyable. One of the best opening SummerSlam matches of all time. With the Hart Foundation and the Brainbusters. Got the IC title on the line. Got some decent 6-man tag matches that have been very enjoyable. And the main event is entertaining. Even Zeus, Savage, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, cutting and strutting, cutting off Sherry's hair at the end. That was entertaining. You don't see any of that anymore. Hogan getting physical with Sherry. Got Tony Schiavone on commentary in the WWF. What a time this was to be a wrestling fan. Anyway, thank you very much for watching Grey Talks Wrestling. You know, if you've got to the end of the video, if you haven't done it already, thank you very much. Smash the subscribe button and the like button, and comment down below what you thought of SummerSlam 1989. I'll see you next time.